Hi. The transformation from the rehearsal room to the show. That's what captured my imagination nearly 20 years ago. And I'm here to talk to you about lighting design for live performance and the journey that brings me here to you today. I'm Pritham Kumar. I'm an actor. I'm a lighting designer. I'm a director. I'm a teacher. Apparently a chef. I think life's too short not to do everything that you want to do and to do it well. When I started out, the industry needed somebody who would work with light. There was just not that many people doing it. So I took it upon myself to be this designer, this executor of shows, this operator of shows, and it paid better than being an actor, because as an actor you're paid with being on stage. Somehow that fills your stomach. So when I graduated from my law degree, I had to choose. I had somehow made it out of what I thought was a lifeless, soulless law education with my head intact. And when I got out, I chose theater because of that sense of accomplishment that came with it, because of that camaraderie that you have when you are part of a production, and that pure magic. It's really hard to explain what that is. I mean, if you've done it, you'd know it. People say that it's the theater bug. Nobody's ever seen it yet. But rumors say that it's very small and very annoying, and it's very addictive. So, not that pictures are going to be able to convey this special something for you, but I thought I'd share with you some images from work that I've done before. Yeah? That's a production called The Dark Lord. That's by Rukmini Vijay Kumar. It was this huge set that we had, and the challenge in the lighting was to be able to guide people to the story that was happening in different places, sometimes in more than one place at any given time. So that was a challenge, as well as multiple skin tones and things like that. This is you can see a little bit more of the set, another image from the same show. This is a picture from a play called A Brief History of Your Hair by Deepika Arvind. The play was in two parts, the first part set in reality and the second part in a sort of magical land, and this was from that second half. Another one from the same show. It looks like they're suspended, that you can't really see the floor, but it's all smoke and mirror, folks. This is another one by Rukmini Vijay Kumar. This piece is called Mala, and the piece, the show has 4 pieces in it, and this was one of the pieces that explores just the nritya in Bharatanatyam. For whoever's familiar with it, I wasn't till I started lighting Bharatanatyam. So this explored just the movement aspect of Bharatanatyam, and we worked closely to find a sort of collaboration between how we can show that movement vocabulary interestingly through light. Another one from that show. This is a picture from a show called Untitled by Shashank Purushottam. It was a play about gender, and it was a drama. It had its dark moments. The black and white certainly helps bring that out. Can we have the other one, please? There was a judge in the play. I thought that worked really well for a judge. This is from a play called Wojciech. It's about a very troubled soldier who's losing his mind. And you can see him sort of hiding, lurking in the shadow beneath. And that's his wife, who he eventually kills in the play. And that's also Anish Victor, who is a very fine lighting designer himself. Give me the next one, please. This was a set by Bunsey Call. It's the same show. The backdrop of the set was like a giant painting. It was just a giant canvas. And so we had to find ways to light it interestingly. It was also made to be like the wall of a tavern where the characters would go in to drink. So when they were inside, how do they would be dancing, they'd be singing, they'd be drinking, there'd be merriment. How do we bring that out? Right? Thanks. So while all this stuff looks great in pictures and you don't really see what goes on behind it, the work has its problems, right? The dreams are big, but there's never any money. The problems with auditoria are the same. It's poorly designed, it's poorly staffed, it's equipped very badly, nobody wants to move anything around. So I've noticed that as a community, as an industry, we give much more importance to becoming actors, or dancers, or musicians, or choreographers, or directors, because these are like, sought after things. They come higher up in the credit roll, So I think it's a bit shallow, because if we're producing only people with that kind of skill set, eventually they're going to start producing work. And they're going to need people and spaces that enable them to do that work. And that means lighting designers and sound engineers and set builders and costume and makeup and technology artists, whatever. So while I can't answer how the industry is going to deal with that, for myself, I had to evolve my craft. I had to update my technology. I had to start thinking of creating my own work. Because despite the fact that I'm fairly self-taught and I'm a learned-on-the-job kind of guy, I have a lot to share. And it just didn't feel right to just up and leave, because I felt like the time had come for me to evolve. Because I know that the industry at some place requires people who do the kind of work that I do, and there are very few people who do it. I also remember that when I tried to study technical theater, it was a choice between, you could take a loan and you could go, or you could apply to a funding agency and try to get a scholarship or something like that. But taking a loan seems like loading the bullet in the gun yourself. Because how on earth are you going to pay back a giant fat loan? And if to go and study technical theater and you're going to come back and work in the arts, you're never going to pay it back. And even funding bodies, they prefer somebody who's going to be more front and center in terms of who they give out their scholarships to. So it's uphill, it's difficult to learn technical theater. So I decided that I'm going to give it all away. Whatever I knew, I was going to share. And there are just a handful of lighting designers in this country, and all of us learn from being on the job. Some from studying it, but largely from being on the job. We work with touring international companies, we sometimes tour with them, we travel abroad with shows, we borrow, we adapt, we use, we copy, whatever it takes to make it more relevant for us, so that we can be more able lighting designers here, or technology artists here. So while it is still difficult to study technical theater in India, I thought that there had to be some place where people could go to learn this stuff. It's not rocket science, but it's made to seem like it's rocket science, which is weird. So I came upon this idea to start a workshop called Reading Light. Reading Light and Tinker Light, but Tinker Light we'll talk about in just a minute. Reading Light was the first in the city, I think, for its scale. Not that a lighting workshop hadn't happened before, but certainly not on this scale, and perhaps a first for the country, because it was a standalone, independent, comprehensive lighting workshop for live performance that gave you everything you needed to bravely step into a show. You had all the fundamentals, the theories, the tips, the tricks. The most important one, the numbers to all the vendors for whatever you needed, from light to sound to generators to projectors or whatever. This is the kind of stuff that, people in the know never give up, because they feel like this is their world and they need to protect it. But I felt that that's exactly what had to be given away. Apart from that, of course, and make life difficult for them, which is good. A good challenge is a good thing. Apart from that, of course, the workshop simulated what a show feels like from the time that it's in a rehearsal to the time that it gets to a show. So performers were called in. They would show the participants a piece, and the participants would then design their lighting around that, and they would, of course, execute it eventually, which you'll see in just a minute. During the workshop, I had to be very conscious of the fact that I didn't want to go into this technical jargon, because I feel like that's the thing that makes people feel like this isn't for me. This is some heavy stuff. I can't deal with it. But it isn't. It really isn't. If you break it down, if you have the patience, if you just tell somebody, if you answer a few questions, pretty much anybody can do it. So I try to create an environment that causes curiosity rather than confusion during the workshops. And the response has been great. I really didn't expect it. I had 2 batches of it last month, and we were sold out. And not just that, there were multiple calls coming in from others who were running other sorts of theater or dance workshops, who were saying, can you do it again? Can you customize the content so that it be relevant for our group or whatever? And it's amazing, because it proved to me that there was a gap, and people had difficulty in finding ways to fill it. And it continues to be a success, and there will be more of these workshops. But just to give you an idea of what it might have looked like, here are some images from the workshop. Some participants with rapt attention, listening to every word I have to say. Next one, please. That's Salman Sharif. He was the actor who brought in a theater piece, who they were designing for. That's Pia Banglawala, who's trying to answer questions about contemporary dance. I don't know if you know about contemporary dance, but it can be quite abstract. There's a lot of room for interpretation. So for people who had never designed for light before, contemporary dance uses a lot of collaboration between designer and choreographer. So in her case, people were like, but why, how, when you, and she's, so this is her trying to answer something that she probably didn't have an answer to. Next one, please. This is what I look like when I attend a rehearsal. My book is open, I'm looking, I'm watching, I'm writing, I'm drawing stuff, I'm designing, essentially. And it was heartening to see that that there were others doing it and not me. This was from one of their presentations. I don't know what's happened to the image, but this was from one of the presentations that the students did. Yeah, you can go to the next one. Something's happened to these images. They're all a bit condensed. So yeah, so these are all different interpretations of the same piece. So we had multiple designers working on the same piece. And the outcome was great, because you got to see so many different ways in which one piece could be lit. And therefore, you're extending its interpretation, especially when it comes to contemporary dance. The next one, please. This is Sal with his theater piece. Of course, again, a lot more space for drama. He was performing a piece from Mahesh Dattani's play, I forget the title. He was presenting that. Could we have the next one? And the next. And the next. Yeah. So I'm aware, this is all a very niche thing to do. The world has bigger problems. But the arts itself is quite niche. And then, you go into a specialization like this, it seems that much more like a thing that, some people do. But I think it's important that more people start doing this kind of work, because I think what the world needs right now are more artists. And an artist who's able to harness technology can do incredible things with public art, which can have profound impacts on society. Because you can use spaces and surfaces that before were just like little bits of like plain wall or some concrete or something, and suddenly it's come to life. So, while Reading Light has come to life, Tinkerlight is still a dream. Tinkerlight is a much bigger dream. It aims to be a national resource center for the exploration of stage technologies, a place where the latest technology is harnessed for live performance, for collaborations, for public art, and it'll also train people to be able to better manage performance spaces, to set standards for quality, for safety, for responsibilities, education, so on and so forth. It'll also help, certainly, in the construction of better performance spaces. Because right now, the trend is that a vendor and an architect decide what a performance space should be. And they've never done anything on that stage that they're going to build. So it seems a bit weird to me that they get to choose. They get to make those decisions around how a bunch of artists are going to use this for years to come. So participants from Reading Light are most welcome, and as well as anybody else, to come forward and take part in Tinkerlight projects. And Tinkerlight projects will entail right now, as baby steps, anything from making your own light to using sensors to harnessing Arduino or Raspberry Pi or the Internet of Things, video mapping, motion tracking, all this cool stuff that's there right now in the world. We can do it. We have access, but we're just not doing it. And we will. That's going to change. But before I go, I just need to tell you about the new direction of my creative work, my personal creative work. Like in that introduction, some time ago, I became a chef, which is strange. I'm a self-taught chef. I made it to the top 50 at MasterChef India in 2016. Thank you. TV still rules. I think the 9,000 people had applied that year or something like that. And completely unrelatedly, a very nice, very special restaurant called Grasshopper offered me to come and take over as executive chef. Again, from no chef to executive chef, it's quite a jump. But I enjoyed it, and I spent a year there. I was planning menus, I was cooking, I was talking to diners and bloggers and dreaming up some dishes, some of which had no recipe, because I think my exploration in food is largely technique-based and not recipe-based. So being in the kitchen and working with all my senses, I like it. It brings me joy, and I enjoy doing it. And it also busts a great gender stereotype. So, but I had to stop this restaurant job at some point because I had too many shows lined up. There were some 20 productions over 7 months, which is a lot. And I've had to sort of stop myself and think about what it is that I want to do. And over the next 7 months, I'm going to move into a phase of creative exploration where I'm going to look at the places where I can intersect theater, technology, and food. And that's not to say that I want to make some fancy food and using some fancy technology and present it dramatically and job's done, but a more nuanced way to present it, a more seamless experience that'll get you to use more than just a few of your senses. Thank you.